Diplomacy, special areas. 3 provinces on the board have special rules for their coasts because they are split either because of politics or geography. St. Petersburg has a north coast and a south coast. St. Petersburg is also a home supply center for the Russians, so when he builds a fleet, he has to specify if it's on the south coast or the north coast. Part of the reason for that is, if it's on the north coast, he can go to the Barents Sea or along the coastal connection to Norway. If he's on the south coast, he can go along the coast to Finland, out to the Gulf of Bothnia, or down Livonia, but he can't go anywhere else. The other most common place where this occurs is here in Spain, where Portugal insists on existing, and therefore Spain has a north coast and a south coast. Fleet in the mid-Atlantic can go to either coast, north coast or south coast. Likewise, a fleet in Portugal can go to the south coast or the north coast. The reason this is important is, if it's in the north coast, the fleet can go to Gascony, can go to Portugal, or out the mid-Atlantic. If it's in the south coast, it can go to the mid-Atlantic. It cannot go directly to North Africa. This is a separation between 2 seas. Go to the Western Med, Gulf of Lyon, or Marseille, but it can't go to Gascony. A unit that can move to Spain, regardless of the coast, can support an action into Spain, even though the fleet was coming from, let's say, a different coast. So fleet in Gulf of Lyon could support fleet mid-Atlantic going to Spain north coast. The next place is Constantinople and Bulgaria. A fleet in Constantinople can go to Bulgaria's south coast or east coast, and it has to specify which one it has to go to, otherwise it doesn't go anywhere. Now that brings us to 2 locations which have inland waterways, one man-made and one natural. We know this body of water as the Dardanelles. Constantinople, or Istanbul today, allows a fleet that's in this province to shift out to the Aegean, over to the Black Sea, to either of Bulgaria's coasts, down here to Smyrna, and over to Ankara. The Germans, at the end of the 1800s, built a canal here at Kiel, oddly enough, called the Kiel Canal, so that they can move a fleet from Kiel to Holland, out to Helgoland, along the coast to Berlin. This is a hard connection for people to see, but it can go to the Baltic, or finally to Denmark. Denmark is our last special province. These islands over here, part of Denmark, are so close together there's actually a bridge here in the modern time called the Malmö Bridge, probably because the Swedes paid more for it, otherwise it would be known as the Danish Bridge. We say that an army that's in Denmark is allowed to move directly to Sweden, and those are all the rules of diplomacy.